Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Sue, and I am here for the short answer. And I'm sitting here with the rowdiest crowd of people you would ever hope to be with. They're crazy. They're crazy. And so I don't even have any idea how this is going to go, but you're invited to stay for the short answer. And then, if that's not enough, we're going to have a master class right after that. And so you might want to plug in, buckle your seatbelt, and get a hard hat on, because I'm not sure what's going to go down here. But first, we're going to talk about some things in this short answer, which is designed to just give you a little taste of what we're talking about inside the Energy Codes with Morter Institute and all of this work of finding how to release the confines of your limiting beliefs and your believing mind itself and finding yourself seated as your essential truth, your soulful self, the one who has a mind and has a body and actually came here to live a life unlimited, a life full of possibilities and a life of truly the miraculous. So we're here to talk about some ideas that we bump up against in life with the short answer and start to roll that over into an understanding of how the energy codes might help with our regular solution to these everyday issues. And so I was just asking the crowd, they were talking about wanting to hear a little bit about what happens when we create from our minds and then we become successful with whatever it is that we've created. And then the next thing we know, we're starting to exhaust, or we're starting to split out, we're starting to not complete the loops, we're starting to get fried, we're starting to not follow through on our commitments or our dreams or our desires even. And what happens when we shift from trying to create from the mind and dropping into another deeper part of who we are and create from there? And how does that roll out in a sustainable creation? And how does it affect our health and our well-being? And part of the conversation also wove in the question of when we're in something that we've created in our lives and it's kind of not working, and maybe we created it from a place of the mind and a place of trying to accomplish something or what have you, and now we're recognizing that it's just kind of not flowing. It's not really working. It's just really hard. There's just a bump in the road every 10 minutes, it seems, and every time you turn around. And so in that situation, how do we know that it's time to go? Or should I stay? Particularly the individual who's in this realm of personal development and trying to find the blessing or the gift in everything and trying to learn my lessons from my life circumstances. And how do I know that I'm not just beating myself up, staying in a situation that is just really not healthy, even though it's with the best of intentions to try to get everything that I can from a growth and a personal development perspective. And so really they're kind of very interrelated, and it all can boil down to this, that we were raised in a culture that was driven by the mind and your thoughts and your goals and your visions, and you go make them happen no matter what, and you don't look to the left or to the right, and you don't let anything interfere or interrupt, you just drive it. And unfortunately, we meet with a lot of success under those circumstances. When we follow those instructions, it works. And so we think, awesome, I'm just going to do that again, or do that more, or do it even stronger, and I'll achieve even more, or I'll achieve again in this other facet of my life, just like I achieved in that original business or in that original relationship or what have you. Different set of circumstances, I'm just going to up the ante and just go at it even harder. And this is what happens. We come into it from a place that is identified as a separate self. When we're identified as the mind and we're setting goals and setting our visions and our mapping out our achievements, we have a tendency to be perceiving life from this place of, I'm alone and I got to make this work. And I might even ask for help, but I'm still this isolated, separate self that's trying to roll out and make my life work. And I practice these tools and I do these things and it works and I achieve something, and yet I'm exhausting because the amount of work that it takes to create something is the amount of work that it takes to sustain it. I want you to just think about that. If it's really hard for you to gather the resources and get all of the planning and get all of the marketing materials down and get all of the system in place and and go through a very difficult process, there is a good chance that if you're trying something new and it's taking that amount of effort, that you actually are developing this from the mental self, from the mental body, from the mind self. And the amount of work that it is taking is perhaps taking that amount because you're not really plugged in. You're not really attuned to what your natural life path is supposed to be. That you're really just got this idea because the neighbors were doing it, or somebody at a course that you went to was doing it, or something you saw in a movie or on TV or something along the way inspired you to, like, that's what I want. I want to have that too. And it might have come from the outside in. And my invitation for you is to evaluate, did my inspiration come from the inside out, or did my inspiration come from the outside in? Because if it came from the outside in, the chances are we have to spend a lot of energy collecting our resources and doing our research and making things come together and happen. And if we are connected internally, we have the ability to sense and feel that our dream and our desire, including a job, including a relationship, that this is going to unfold in my highest good because the inspiration is from the inside out. When I'm connected in, my mind can feel the truth of who I am. And when the mind can feel the truth of who I am, it's going to steward that into manifestation. If I can't feel that and I'm just looking around for some kind of inspiration, maybe I hear something, I read something, someone says something to me, and I think, yeah, that might be it. The risk in this moment is, am I trying to accomplish something that happened naturally for someone else? Or am I really in touch with accomplishing something that is naturally in alignment for myself, for me? And the difference can make all of the difference in your life. If you're exhausting, if you are fatiguing, if you are frustrated, if you are disillusioned, the chances are life is offering you up the opportunity to unattach from this world that is driven by your mind and your outside-in approach, and it's begging you to recognize that there's another way of doing things. And oftentimes we find ourselves kind of falling into our core, kind of caving in and wishing that we had a better answer, wishing, soul-searching, finding something, finding some prayer or asking others for help. And when we come into that deeper place within and we allow this rising up of an energy that we can identify as, that's my inspiration. That's what I'm following. I'm following this. I don't know how it's going to look or what's going to happen, but I know it has to feel this way. If I allow that to be my guiding light, what begins to happen is things rearrange in the outer world. You actually generate literally a physical rearrangement in the physical world out there. We have to remember the physical world is a byproduct. It's a reflection of your own consciousness. It's a way for you to get feedback as to how you're managing the energy from the inside out. And so as you choose from this inside out approach, the moment that you tap that, the world starts conspiring to support its fulfillment, its manifestation. Literally, the smallest particle in creation, the photon, arranges itself in accordance with the thought that you've just thought. It starts to collect others just like it. The more you think it, the more consistently you are, the more directions you come from to this same sensed sensation that you're now following as your guidance in life. The more pathways you build and additional photon arrangements come into a structure that starts to actually outpicture as if the outer world has answered your prayer. But really, the outer world has responded to your command. That's really what's been happening. And so when you are sincere, when you are vulnerable, when you are surrendered, healing happens. In fact, all healing happens after a surrender. A surrender of some sort must occur for healing to happen. Because when the surrender occurs, the stronghold that the mind has had on your life from you driving it with such intensity starts to become permeable. It starts to soften. It starts to become pliable, and it can rearrange. And the moment that rearrangement happens, we start collecting more and more and more support to that commanded manifestation. So it can't be the ego mind demanding. It has to be a surrendered, vulnerable, heartfelt command, a choice that you simply have already made. Once you make the choice, the outer world has no choice but to begin reflecting that back to you. And as we begin to find our mind wanting to chime in and saying, yeah, you got this far, but it's probably not going to work over this next hump. You're probably not going to jump through this next loop without it failing or falling apart. If you continue to tap this source and continue to just choose from this place, even if you have to close your eyes to do it so that there's not so much distraction that pulls you off core, you do that because the world has no choice but to respond to you. So what happens then, if you start choosing this way and you start to recognize, whoa, what if this means that some of the circumstances that I'm currently in, a relationship that I'm in, a career that I'm in, maybe I stepped into that relationship or that career from a place living from my mind. And so what if I'm intellectually trying to drive that relationship or intellectually trying to drive that career choice? And chances are, if it's painful, that is the truth. And so what we first have to do is surrender. First, we have to become vulnerable. We have to become available to learning, to revealing, to finding the ways we've been getting in our own way, to sensing and feeling that. And when we do, we're taught in the Energy Codes coursework what to do with those findings rather than just observe them. We have to bring it to the body and build some circuitry in the electromagnetic energy flow so that the central nervous system can begin to pick up on a different flow of energy with our sensory nervous system that can then send a message to the integrative system in the brain that allows us to conclude, to feel and sense a version of ourselves that is strong, that is available, that is grounded, that is anchored, and that is true. And when that begins to happen, we can come opening into our relationships and into our careers in a fashion that we were unable to just before because we had a state of fear, a degree of achievement, a competitiveness, or a, oh my gosh, what if it's not going to work out? Then where will I be? That whole wobble creates an inability for us to completely manifest. So the idea that I say oftentimes in the coursework is it's not okay to go until it's okay to stay. And what that means is you have to know that you're not attached, that you're not defending yourself, that you're available, and that you are offering up love and possibility, that you're available for solution, you're available for collaboration, you're listening, and you're also giving yourself permission to share your observations freely without withhold for fear that you're gonna crash something that's fragile. Is the truth is, when we're operating from this essential self, the world is pliable. Relationships are negotiable. They're pliable. They meet in a place of love instead of defensiveness or rightness and wrongness. And so when I say it's not okay to go until it's okay to stay, what I mean is that we must be able to experience ourselves in those moments knowing that we are available, knowing that we're bringing solution, not just pointing out the problem, knowing that we're available to see that I'm getting in my own way, which is getting in the way of the relationship. And if we're doing all of that and we're still not met in that kind of a way, and we've been modeling it for quite some time, and the quality of life is starting to diminish, if in your heart of hearts you feel to move on, then I want to encourage you to move on. Because what will likely happen is, in the process of letting go enough that you're willing to move on, something more dramatic will even change in the relationship itself. When they're unattached to the outcome, what happens is the fulfillment of the relationship's purpose begins to manifest with great beauty and joy. It's truly a miraculous transformation that happens. And of course, as always, I want to say that if you're in an abusive situation, you do not have to stick around long enough to see if you can get okay with abuse in order to know your wholeness. That this job is always going to be available to you. This opportunity is always going to be available to you. And you don't have to worry about just leaving this relationship and creating another one where you're going to have to learn the same situation, the same lesson, if you will, or remember the same aspects of your own greatness. What will always happen is it will be available to you. but by no means are you to stay in a situation that is not based in kindness, that isn't based in possibility, that is abusive or abrasive physically, mentally, or emotionally in any way. So know that from the inside out is the way to live, and know that when it is okay to stay, then you can go. And when you do recognize all the things that require you staying, you likely have found a deeper version of yourself from the soulful perspective that is finding itself okay in all situations, which allows you to be available for modeling and bringing the love and the joy into the life circumstance, the job, the relationship, whatever it may be. So blessings to you all. That's kind of a long, short answer, but it works. And we're going to be tapped into the masterclass in just a little bit about all kinds of things about relationships and soulmates and interacting with energy fields when it comes to attraction and those kinds of things. Apparently, that's what we're going to be talking about. Some of the questions that were coming up before we started here this evening. So click on the button on your screen and join us for the masterclass. If you're not yet a gold member on our website, it's easy to do, and we will see you in just a few moments. Blessings to you all.